Ladies and gentlemen, Enid Lorimer. I was talking to Chantal there, Enid, about her parents' reaction.
Yeah.
Yes, and I should imagine in Victorian England that your parents were quite
Oh,
opposed.
yes, they were horrified, of course. My father did the regular, never darken my door again, to keep the right gesture. But, of course, we made it up before very long. We loved each other too much. And also my mother could always manage him and manage me. And we ended up very good friends.
What kind of a household was it, though, Enid? What do you remember as a child?
A Londoner. Yes, I was a Londoner. My sister and I were brought up in a nursery at the top of a tall house in London, and we played about the round pond, all that kind of thing. And I went to school, and I went to boarding school, and I went to finishing school. And in the course of my school days, I fell into the hands of the great doyenne teacher of her time, Elsie Fogarty, a very, very wonderful woman. Many years later, she trained Laurence Olivier's voice.
That's right. But before we get on to that, let's go back to the childhood. You mentioned there you lived in the nursery at the top of the house.
Yes.
Was it very much the upstairs, downstairs situation?
Very much, very much. Of course, one of the things that, curiously enough, I seem to have been born resenting was the appalling cleavage between classes.
Really?
It was quite dreadful. I think it was Israel Zangwill who wrote a book about that time called The Two Nations, the upper class and the lower class. And really the attitude of the upper class, which although I was born into it, I bitterly resented from the very beginning, was that when my mother, who was a kind woman, would say of her servants if they were upset about something, well, after all, you know, darling, they don't feel things quite as we do.
Really?
Imagine it.
What sort of things would they have them do?
Oh, my dear, run from the basement up several floors. We'd be in the drawing room. Mother would say, Nini, press the bell. And I would press the bell, and up the poor thing would come from the basement, 2 floors. Yes, and put some more coal on the fire, please. And she would put it on the fire. The scuttle was there, everything was there, and she'd trot down again. And even at 8 years old, I thought, well, now, I could have done that, or Mamma could have done it herself. Why bring her all that way up? That was how people felt about it, you see.
Yes.
And I always resented that.
Was there much snobbery as well?
Oh, the snobbery was out of this world.
Was it?
And it's always been the thing that next to cruelty, I think snobbery, well, of course, snobbery is a form of cruelty.
Yes.
It's a combination of cruelty and pride. And to my mind, that's why I love Australia, because at least here we're all human beings. But there, really, as I say, they don't feel things as we do, dear.
Before we come on to you going to Australia, now, I said there that you were born... In fact, when you were born, the Boer War was going, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yes, I've lived through 3 wars, the end of the Boer War, I remember that very well. The relief of Mafeking, oh, Lord, I remember all that fuss. And then, of course, there was the First World War, and then, of course, there was the Second World War.
But,
I've had enough of wars, thank you.
Yes, I bet you have. But what I was going to ask you about was life in Victorian England. Did you actually ever see Queen Victoria?
Oh, yes.
Did you?
Oh, yes, very often. I remember, for instance, one time we were in Kensington Gardens, and she evidently had been visiting somewhere around there, and we heard jingle, 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 and along came a little handful of gentlemen riding in uniform. Of course, no khaki, all the scarlet and the pickelhaube and all the rest of it. And in the middle, a very portly gentleman, the Prince of Wales, and then the carriage with the little old lady. And I was about 5, I suppose, and my sister was a baby in arms. And Queen Victoria, the little old thing sitting hunched up there in black with something white round her throat and white gloves, and she waved her hand at the baby, and I tore my little fur cap off and waved it violently, and she waved to me, and my nurse was so cross, she said, "You naughty girl, Miss Nini, you put your hat on at once, you'll catch your death cold." And I had waved to Queen Victoria. I saw her
Did she wave back?
times.
Did she wave back? Or was she not amused? Did she wave back?
Oh, yes,
She
yes.
did?
Oh, yes, she waved back all right.
Well, what's amazing is, you know, you're going back there 87 years. Do you find, as you get older, that you remember your childhood with more clarity?
I have a very good memory, really. I forget names and I forget dates. That's because I have a deep hole wherever one should have a bump for figures. Figures know nothing to me ever. But I do remember very clearly, I have a very clear picture of the unfolding of the past. It's all been most interesting. I've been most fortunate. I've seen so many changes, and all for the better. All for the better.
All for the better?
Definitely for the better.
Really?
Yes. You see, I remember seeing the Fulham workhouse, and they'd separate the poor little old men and the poor little old women who'd lived together all their married lives, and then they were taken, they'd be allowed out for half an hour to trot up and down in the cold together, and then they'd be taken off to their separate quarters. Oh, dreadful, horrible things. And poor little children, there was education, they were driven to school, but there was no free milk and no free lunch, and they hadn't got none of them had a shoe to their foot. And they were running about in the English winter with their little blue bare feet. Oh, no, no, of course it's all for the better.
You said, was it something of this then, this protest against English society, which brought you to Australia?
No, what brought me to Australia was the fact that I had friends here. And they invited me to come over. I came over here, and I fell flat on my face in love with Australia and with Sydney in particular. Sydney is the only place in the world that I love as though it were a person.
Really?
A real personal love for it. I could just pick it up and hug it.
Why? Why is that?
Oh, I don't know. It's just Sydney. It's just so lovely.
Yeah.
And you see, people are human beings here. I remember the first day, the day after I arrived here, and I was taken to Proud's to have my watch tended to. And the man took it out and said, yes, well, it wants so and so and so and so. I said, yes. And he said, yes, well, now, may I have your name and address? And I gave him the name and address. And he said, yes, well, now, that'll be ready on Wednesday, Miss Lorimer. And he's treating me like a human being. He's not calling me madam. I'd much rather be called Miss Lorimer. I'd much rather be called Enid than anything else.
But what about the career that you've had, the long career as an actress, both here and abroad? Who have been the people there's been one very famous person that you've discovered and helped with this career, hasn't there?
Oh, yes, dear Peter. Peter Finch.
Now, how did you discover Peter Finch?
Well, the girl who afterwards married my adopted son, my beloved daughter, and I, this was in India, Dadyar, at the headquarters of the Theatrical Society. We were visiting there. And across the water, in the compound, we saw a bunch of people, including a very plump Buddhist priest, shaven head and yellow robes, and my daughter said, oh, look, they've got one of the baby, because you used to see them in Ceylon running about, you know, the little baby Buddhist priests, yes, shaven heads and yellow robes. And sure enough, there it was, this little fellow. Well, the next day, I met a friend of mine, an English officer, retired officer, and he was leading this little fellow by the hand. Apparently, Mrs. Besant, who was a lady of very strong views, heard about this and sent for the grandmother and said, you've no business, this child's been brought up with no education, and he's an English child, and if this is discovered, there'll be a row, and you're not fit to have charge of him. I'm going to take him away from you. Made inquiries and found that he had relatives here in Sydney. So he was taken charge of, and there he was running about in a little white suit cut down from one belonging to this young soldier who was looking after him, and a topi made him look like a walking mushroom on his poor little bald head. And they came over, we all came back to Sydney. I came back a little earlier than they did because I was teaching school at the time, and I had to get back to start the term. And so I taught him to read and write. He did, but he was as bright as he was bright, that boy, as bright as a bird. How old was he then? He was 9 years old.
9 years old.
He was absolutely wonderful child. As clever as paint, and a dear, most likeable little fellow. He grew up like, I'm afraid, most children who are deprived of a happy home and secure home life when they're small. He grew up lacking in a sense of responsibility. He was not very dependable in many ways, but he was a most likeable, sweet fellow. I had a letter only the other day from Tamara, his wife. I was going to say his real wife, anyway, his first wife, who still adores him. And she was saying what a lovely, lovely person he was, and he was. He was a darling person.
Because he had a wild streak in him, did he?
But he had this irresponsible streak. You couldn't depend on him, you see. But of course what happened was that he began... I came back, my mother and sister were alive in those days, and I came back to England for a while. And when I came back, he'd left his relations. He'd got himself a job on the Sun newspaper as a copy boy or something. And then he met the Oliviers who were here, and they took him up and took him to London. And of course the rest is theatrical history.
That's right.
He leapt straight into the deserved success, because he was a brilliant person. He was a sweet person, but he was a bit lacking in responsibility.
Well, I suppose that's...
But I mean, for heaven's sake, poor child, how could he not be?
No, that's right, absolutely.
It's so dreadful, isn't it?
But you mentioned there, let's talk a little bit, you mentioned there two of the great names of theatre who you've known or worked with. What about some of the others? Now, you knew my dear old friend Edith Evans, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I was with Edith Evans the very first part she played, which was Troilus and Cressida.
Now, tell me...
She played Cressida.
And I want an honest reply from you, Enid, actually,
Yes.
because, I never met Edith till she was 82. And she's a dear, sweet, funny old lady, but people who
Yes, I
worked
remember
with
her when she was old.
say that she could be really terrible when she was younger.
She was
difficult.
a tall, gangling, plain girl with sandy hair and sandy lashes. You know, the sort of thing. No glamour about her whatever, but what talent. It just rayed out of her. It was at the old Stratford Theatre, the one that was burnt down.
Yes.
And of course has since been rebuilt. And they were doing, an old boy whose name I'm sorry to say I can't remember, who used to put in semi-amateur, semi-professional Shakespeare productions, and he was doing Troilus and Cressida, and she was playing Cressida. And the talent just shone out of her. So forever after that, I always watched out for her. I didn't actually meet her again until the second year of the National Theatre. I was with the National Theatre with Laurence Olivier and Michael Redgrave from its first inception, from its first year. And the second year, when we started, they brought her in. And I was looking out, so I knew she was coming in. And so I kept a seat beside me for her, and I was watching for her, and I saw this funny little shrunken old lady come in, because she was contemporary of mine, you see. If she had lived, she would be the same age that I am. I'm in my 93rd year. She was roughly the same age.
Yeah, she's a bit younger than you, actually.
Not very much.
No, a couple of years, perhaps.
I hope that doesn't mean what I think it means. Sorry, darling. Anyway, I saw her coming in, you see, and I went up and I said, oh, do come in, Miss Evans. You won't remember me, but we met many, many years ago, and I've got a seat for you, and let me get you a cup of tea. And she sat down, and I had a great disillusionment at that time. One of the people I knew in his very early days, when he was a very little boy, with, who was that woman who trained children? I can't remember her name. Very well-known woman who trained children in London at that time. Oh, long before your time, dear.
I'm glad you've let me off the hook.
Oh, you young people wouldn't remember. People of my age, anybody up to and including the 70s are you young people.
That's right.
Which is rather jolly, I enjoy it. But anyway, this little boy was doing something, and I said, would you like to sit on my lap, darling? You look very tired. And he sat on my lap, and I suppose he was about 8 or 9, something like that. And I didn't meet him again until he was grown up and he joined the second year of the National Theatre. They brought him in to do one of his plays, and Edith Evans was playing the lead. And he was so horrid to her. I thought of saying, when he first came in, I looked at him. I hadn't seen him, because I'd been away from England so much. And I hadn't seen him since he'd been a little boy. And I didn't greatly like the look of him, but I thought, oh, well, I'll remind him we knew each other once. And then when I saw the way he treated Edith Evans, he really was quite horrid to her. I was very angry about it.
Who was that?
Noel Coward.
Noel Coward?
Noel Coward.
Was it really?
Yes.
You bounced him on your knee?
I bounced him on my knee, yes. He was an enchanting small child. Well, of course, I suppose all small children are pretty enchanting.
The trouble is they grow up, Enid, isn't it?
Yes, quite. Some of them maybe shouldn't. Oh, I don't know.
Now, let's talk about, you said earlier on that throughout your life that most things, everything's changed for the better.
Oh, yes.
In fact, a lot of people in your profession, in fact, would argue that television was one of the worst things that ever happened. You know, this sort of rather snobbish convention among some actors of the old school about
I
television.
could not agree less.
Really?
You see, in the old days, there was only theatre. The only thing that you could do was in theatre, which meant that everything had to be larger than life size. Because unless... think I hear somebody at the door, well, I've got to do that. But when the camera comes right up to me, I can just do it like that, and it's much more frightening. But when you've owned a theatre, everything's got to be larger than life, otherwise it doesn't get past the first 2 rows of the stalls. It won't get up into the back of the gallery at all.
Yes.
And you've always got to have the back of the gallery in your mind, because after all, they've paid their good money and they've a right to hear what's going on. But you see, now the audience comes right up to us. And that creates an entirely different relationship, which I personally prefer, because I think it's a much more friendly, a much more agreeable relationship. I mean, when one's done something in television, and I go out in my suburb, and some nice old man is likely to come, or some sweet old lady is likely to come and say, oh, I say, weren't you horrible yesterday? I revelled in horrible parts.
Did you?
I know I love being absolutely horrible. It's great fun.
You did some soap opera too, didn't you?
Oh, I adore soap operas.
Do you?
I adore soap operas. I watch them all. I watch them all. And I'm glued, because being as I am, I can't move about, I'm immobile. And so television is the only form of entertainment that I get, and I love it. But the thing is, you see, it's also much more human. We take a more human interest in people. I get, I mean, Cop Shop. Look at Cop Shop, for instance. I wouldn't miss an episode of Cop Shop. And I think they are darn good actors. I mean, look at that lovely fellow who plays Geoffrey. I love that man. I really love that. He's a superb actor. But you see, it's a different kind of acting. Yeah. The whole kind of acting has altered.
Yes.
Which I think is all for the good.
Yes.
Because you can do things in a much more intimate, in a much more subtle way. When you've got to get to that back there, you can't be subtle. But when it comes up to you, then you could be as subtle as you like. And my goodness, there are some glorious performances going on. We have some superb actors here, I'm delighted to say. I mean, take a person like Johnny Million.
Good actor.
Lovely actor. Now, Johnny Million I remember the last time I worked with him, and in a thing called Case for the Defence. And Case said to him, now tell me, are you really a little bit gone in the head, or are you just putting it on? Oh, said Johnny, that is for me to know, and for you to find out. You see, you've got it.
Do you ever watch George on 60 Minutes?
I'm sorry to say I don't.
Oh.
It's not a soap opera.
There's no soap opera.
I think it clashes with a soap opera. Never mind, I shall make a point of doing it.
I don't, with your kind of mind, I don't think I want you to.
Oh, I wouldn't be hard on you, love.
No, you just might be too honest.
When you still are beautiful, actually. When
oh my God!
You are.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
I know. When you were younger, were you a great beauty?
No.
You were not?
I don't think so.
No.
I never thought of myself as beautiful.
Did you play glamorous parts, though?
I never played. See, when I was started in the theatre, which was during and immediately after the First War, what was wanted at that time, naturally, were little fluffy types. But I was never a little fluffy type, ever, ever, ever.
No, I found it difficult to believe it was a little fluffy.
Oh, no, a little fluffy. But they wanted it, you see. That was what was wanted. And therefore, I drifted into the other side of things. I got into films in the early days, the old silent days. I used to write the ridiculous things. You had to write the stuff at the bottom, you know. And I was General Dog's Body, running around doing things in films and having an awful lot of fun.
Really?
But I was tall, you see, I am tall, and I was much too tall to play. Now, the tall, slender, willowy type is in.
Very much in
Too
fashion.
too late for me.
Enid, what then was your... You seem not to have been too enamoured of your physical attributes, but what do you think was your best feature?
My dear little nose. I wasn't very attracted to my dear little nose. Because, you see, my mother had a nose like mine, but it was rather longer. And my father had an enormous Duke of Wellington nose. My sister and I were always so thankful that neither of us had inherited it. Because you think of that on a woman. As a matter of fact, we had an aunt who had inherited it. And she had a little... She was an elderly lady. She had a little rather withered face and this enormous Duke of Wellington nose. And it was really rather regrettable. So I feel I have a great deal to be thankful for it.
Did you ever have, though, as an actress in all your many, many years in business, do you ever have, in the early days, well, when you're younger, did you ever have a producer trying to abuse his...
Oh, dear me, yes.
Did
dear
you?
me, yes. Yes, I can never forget the gentleman who we discussed the part and all the rest of it, and I was just leaving, and he came up behind me and put an arm around me and said, of course, if I give you this part, you'll be nice to me, won't you? And my right hand was ready. And my nails are fairly long at the time, too.
Did you, when you, I don't know, I suppose, look back on your life, what have been the moments that have really sort of stood out for you? What have been the highlights
moments?
of your...
Oh, I've had some wonderful times. I'm such a fortunate woman. You see, I've been so fortunate in my friends. Everything that's been ever done for me, and so much has been done for me, has been done through friends. And it's really quite wonderful. I shall never be grateful enough for all the wonderful people who've gone out of their way to help me and be wonderful to me. One of the loveliest moments, of course, was when I came here, as I say, I came around by boat, of course, stepped off at Fremantle and went up to Perth. I thought, but this is my country. I ought to have been born here. This is ridiculous. And then in Melbourne, some people met me, and in Adelaide, some people met me, and then I was met by the friends I was going to stay with in Sydney. I said, this is ridiculous. I should have been born here. This is where I belong. And I went back and forth a number of times, and then now I've been home now. I've been an Australian citizen. I've held an Australian passport for many years now, and I've been home now for 18 years, and of course I'm never likely to go. I don't want to go back to England. Actually, I don't like what England has turned into or what English life has turned into.
Don't you?
No. You see, there is still... we were touching on that just now. There is still an awful lot of snobbery in England.
Yes, that's true.
I'm told, as I say, I've not been there for 18 years, but I'm told that it's still just as bad as ever. And no, I don't like what England has turned into or what life in England has turned into at all.
Yes, I can imagine you would still get into one or two fights in it if you went over there.
I think I would.
I think
I would.
But tell me, I mean, you're now in your 93rd year. What do you look forward to?
What do I look forward to? I'm looking forward eagerly to the next great step, of course, because that's going to be interesting. I shall see all the lovely people there who are waiting for me, and I'm looking forward to that very much. And it'll be interesting. One will become even closer to the Lord than one is now. What's it? Well, now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. And I can't be afraid of it because the dear Lord knows He's looked after me and taken care of me all these years, and I don't imagine He's likely to leave off now.
I wouldn't have thought so.
So I imagine that I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. But in the meantime, in short term, I'm looking forward very much to about 18 months' time, when a beloved godson of mine, Australian-born, is definitely coming back here. He's made Trafford Whitelock, you may know.
Oh, yes, indeed.
You know Traff?
Yes, of course.
Well, of course, I've known Traff ever since he was a young boy. He always calls me his godmother. And he's coming back here in about 18 months' time and definitely going to settle down here. And I must say I'm looking forward to that very much indeed, because we're very, very close friends.
I shall be back in a year. Will you come back on my show then?
Good on you. You bet I will.
Enid Lorimer, thank you very much indeed.